Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. This is Fight Court. I'm your boy Dean Thomas, joined with always Ryan Quinn, but we have a special guest today, and I am pleased to bring in our guest, Victor Henry. Vic, what's going on, man?
Not much, guys. I mean, it's another day. I trained again, so it is what it is. It's like this every day.
I get it, man, and I love the attitude. So here's my thing, man, because I asked you to come on the show before the fight, and typically, like when the fight happens, like they expect, if you win, you coming on the show. If it don't work out, you don't hear from me again.
Yeah,
but I don't operate like that, man. Win, lose, draw, you a fighter, you a dog, and I wanted to give you some love, man, because I was gutted for you based on the outcome of the fight. But here we are. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, it's a very rare thing where, people ask you to come on beforehand, then, either the fight doesn't go your way or whatever. And then it's like you're forgotten as if you're nothing. And I appreciate, I appreciate being able to come here, even though I did take an L on Saturday. It reminds me of fighting back in Japan, where it's just like they love you, win, lose, or draw, as long as you go out there and you try your best. So that I really appreciate that. As far as the fight goes, man, I struggled a little. I mean, every first round that I have is always kind of a struggle, only because it takes me a minute to get the rhythm of things. But once I got it, I feel like, okay, it's time to pull through. After a couple of the takedowns in the first, and then I got the takedown in the second, I thought, okay, this is the momentum change. This is the shift change that I needed in order to start going. Then on that wrestle up, as soon as he started coming up, I felt him kind of sliding in that guillotine. However, I thought, I'm going to pass to the opposite side, start setting up this Von Flue. But by the time I even know it, he went to power guillotine. There was no hand to fight that I could get to. And that was, it was well planned on his behalf. And of course, I was pissed. Man, I was mad because I was.
Yeah, what made you so mad, though?
Well, because I got caught. That was the first time I've been finished in my professional career.
Really? No.
Yeah.
Wow. No
first
kidding.
time, yeah, very first time being finished in my professional career. Second time being finished overall. And it's just, I can, the way I think about it is, this is not just every fight is not just another fight for me. Every fight is its own fight that can either make you or break you. Especially at this level, in this organization, every fight counts, not only just the win, but the performance. If you go out there and you perform and you do well, even if you lose, they bring you back and they're willing to renegotiate with you. And there's just so much more than just the loss on your record. For me, at least, it's where does it put me next? That was the second fight on my 4-fight contract. So where does that put me next? That either has me fighting for, fighting whoever it's going to have me fight. The way I think about it is, they're going to put me in there with the likes of the people that they're trying to build. And, okay, yeah, these are going to be tough guys no matter what, but it's like, okay, now you're in the ditch. You're going to, okay, do you really want to be in here? We're going to put you up against these guys that are the killers of the division, because we're trying to keep these guys busy, and, it is what it is. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's a fight. And at the end of the day, when you have a bad day at work, do you just not go back to work? Of course not. You got to pick up and get right back to it, which is what I did.
So here's the thing, man. I mean, you're with Josh Barnett, who is a former UFC heavyweight champion, a legend of the game, well respected, and he doesn't work with a lot of people. And you're essentially his only guy in the UFC. Is there any pressure that you feel representing him this way?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, because of course you never want to let your coaches down, and Josh has taken a lot of his own time where he could be doing things and making his own money in whatever ways he feels that he needs to do. but he takes that time and he puts it into me. And of course, I don't want to disappoint my coaches, but I also know that if he is the one that said I will be your coach, then he has an obligation to do it. You know, we don't. I mean, if if I give my word to somebody that I'm going to do something, that then now it's on me, and of course it's on them to do their best. However, I know that Josh feels the same way. No matter where I fought, I always felt like I had to represent Josh and the old school way of teaching and fighting. I have to represent that because that's the way I was brought up. So I wanna represent him. I want to represent the old school way of doing things. I want to represent my friends and family. I want to represent everything that makes me. I don't just want to go out there and just have a fight and have it mean nothing. Every fight is its own. Like I said before, every fight is its own fight, and I need to win these. These are the ones that are. Every fight is important, not just in the fight realm, but for myself. I mean, what better way to feel alive than to go out there and fight to the best of your ability and do well.
Absolutely. So, looking back, I felt the same way you did. I felt you you didn't gauge him well at first, but towards the end of the first round, you did. You were getting in, whether it was with takedowns or finishing the exchanges, and I thought that was a pretty good adjustment within the 3 minutes that you did it, and then you led that into the second round as well. What did your training consist of going into this fight? Was there a lot of wrestling, grappling defense, anything like that? What was going on for this fight? I do know that he's a little bit more of a striker, so.
Yeah, so most of my fight camp for this fight was dealing with taller guys. I mean, I know he's what was he, 5'9", 5'10", I'm 5'7", and you know, dealing with rangy strikers that like to kick. And so initially it was okay, catch kicks, make them pay for kicks. The way he had a fight in Paris against Wood, and he and Wood was
Yep.
yeah, he was doing really well. I was like, okay, if I can get on the inside, be smooth, time those kicks, box him up in the inside, it'd be a really good fight for me. But he fought me a lot different. He was actually on the back foot. I was not expecting that. I thought he was going to meet me in the middle and we was going to swing, but no, he actually had a good adjustment and he started getting on his bike and kind of, pot shot me from outside. However, at a certain point, I know that even though in the first round I was saying, okay, I know that he wants to do this, but I don't think he's going to keep doing this only because it takes more cardio to be running around. I don't think he wants to do that, especially at 35. Probably the weight cut probably drained him a little bit. And I also know that if he starts to touch me a little bit, he's going to think he's going to have a bunch of success and want to start bombing and standing in front of me, which is going to be the start of his downfall, which is what led to all the clinch work. Because I was like, okay, I could feel the clinch work, I could feel the strength, and now I'm making my adjustments. Okay, I'm getting to his body. I'm able to body lock him. I'm able to put him on the ground. I took his back. Those were the things I was like, okay, even though I didn't necessarily train for it, but these are the adjustments that are happening in the fight, and this is what's working right now. So let's just keep going with this. And then on the wrestle up, choked. Oh, that sucked.
If you go back and watch, you had some pretty good exchanges when you were punching and moving your head with your punches, and you were connecting on. And I think that'll lead to more impact striking and takedowns later on. Go back and watch that towards the end of the first round. You'll see what I'm talking about. So what did you think going forward? Like, what adjustments would you make? I hate saying you either lose or you learn, but we got to learn. Otherwise, we got to learn. So is there anything that you might have learned from this fight going forward?
Hand fight a little bit sooner. If I would have been on the hand for longer, because I remember when we were still on the ground, I was in his guard. I was hand fighting. I was not letting those hands come together. It was on the wrestle up where I let go of his hands, and I figured he's either going to drape on top of me, and I'm going to feel his pressure on me, so I'm going to fight the hands. But he didn't do that. It was actually on the retreat where he's sliding up that hand, and then he put that power guillotine grip on me. So, of course, hand fight all the way to the feet. That would be the only adjustment I would make because, you can kind of nitpick on certain things that you would do different, but ultimately the one thing that mattered the most, which was the end, the hand fighting. If I would have hand fought for longer and on the transition on the way up, then it would have been a different fight.
Vic, can I call you Vic? I don't know why I want to
You can
call
call me.
Vic.
You can call me Vic.
Victor. I'm like Vic. Like we homies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I know everybody call you Victor, but I'm like Vic. So you have an extensive. This is what I love about you. You have an extensive background in fighting abroad, especially in Japan, and not a lot of people get that. They don't, and a lot of people are envious of that. I talked to a lot of fighters, and I was a couple of guys recently, and they're just like, "Yo, I can't wait to fight in Japan."
Yeah.
And can you kind of describe the differences between fighting in Japan and fighting in the States?
Yeah. So first and foremost, everybody really pretty much knows this. The crowd. The crowds are silent up until something significant happens. Then you'll hear an ooh or an ah. You'll hear something. Generally, the crowds in Japan have been more educated on fighting longer than the U.S. crowd has been. Generally, the U.S. crowd has been more of a blood and guts, and let's go out there, and then you have your people that kind of know what's going on, sprinkled out through the crowd. Nowadays, the American fan base they've caught up to the education of what's going on, but of course they still want people to go out there and have a good fight. Japan, on the other hand, like I said, they're completely silent for until something happens. You'll hear ooh or ah or whatever. That's the first thing that I thought about. Secondly, win, lose, or draw, those guys are in your corner. They're going to be like, oh, that was a good fight. Oh, it sucks that happened, but that was a good fight. Generally, you only get that kind of treatment here from other fighters or people that are within the business. General fans are gonna be like, they'll laugh at you, you suck, whatever, and they'll really make sure that you feel like crap if you let them. One of the, it's funny, one of the fights that actually made me think about that was one of the very first UFC fights during COVID when Justin Gaethje fought Tony Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody was really used to that. And everybody heard the impact of Gaethje's fists against Tony Ferguson. And I remember people commenting, is like, oh man, it's so brutal. It's sick. And I was just like, that's been going on in Japan for years. That is the sounds of fighting. It's not, I mean, generally you hear, either the commentators or you'll hear the crowd and you have a disconnect from what's actually happening in there because you don't hear it. You don't hear the grunts and the smacks and the shins clashing up against arms or, the fists against faces. And then this fight pops up and then you're like, oh man, that's what actual fighting is. And I think that a lot of people have forgotten about that. Especially now that we've gone back to crowds, we've gone back to, having, commentators being able to, speak, and there's just it's like the background noise of what's actually happening. But in Japan, however, you still have that. You still get to, it doesn't really matter where you're sitting in the crowd. You'll still hear somebody smack somebody upside the head with a shin.
We keep the show short, man. We don't like to take a lot of your time, but Victor, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. You are a true gentleman. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be a fan. I'm cheering you on. Win, lose, or draw, you still a G. We know this. But I appreciate you coming on the show today, man, giving us some insight.
Appreciate you, Victor. Seriously, man.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Hey, you know what? Till the wheels fall off or my freaking hair falls off. But I'm going to keep fighting. You know how it is.
You got any sponsors or anyone to call out, give a shout to?
Yeah, Gentlemen's Fight Club. I'm actually wearing their stuff right now. Gentlemen's Fight Club. They hook it up. Fight Tech, they hook it up. Munchie Meal Press. Munchie Meal Preps, they hook me up with keeping me healthy and skinny when I need to be. Yeah, those are my guys, man. They stayed in my corner and they're with me till the wheels fall off too.
Awesome. All right,
my man. Well, have a good night, man. Take it easy and we'll catch up soon.
Take it easy, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Peace.
Bye.
All right, that was Victor Henry. Quinn, I don't know how my Wi-Fi held up on
You're
that one,
you're all
but
right. You're all
you
right.
know,
You're all right. You're still ugly. Don't
it,
worry about it.
yeah. So that was Saturday night in UFC Edmonton. I worked at, and it was weird, man, because it was such a lot of good fights. You know, Brandon Moreno looked fantastic, better than he's ever looked before. Um, Rose Namajunas lost, and it was weird because to me, I thought she was the better fighter, by evident in the first 2 rounds, but she got bullied in the next 3 rounds. Now, before we get into some of the coaching issues that the internet has had, I just want to get your thoughts on her performance and that fight itself.
I mean, I think you nailed it. It was a mixed martial arts loss. It was almost like Blanchfield didn't win that fight. Rose lost that fight, and like because Rose was up the first 2 rounds, and then in the second the next 2 rounds was the real was the boring that fans don't like with the wrestling and the up against the cage. The fifth round now, Aaron really kind of put a beating on her. She had her in a crucifix for a little bit. She landed some ground and pound with those takedowns, but Rose just didn't adjust, and that was real surprising that she couldn't even figure out the range especially because she was winning the range in the first 2 rounds, and she couldn't readjust, and it was. I mean, it was just she just got flat right away. It didn't even look like she was out of shape. She just got flat. That's what it was. And Erin, I've been telling I've been telling people that Erin has a really good way to gauge and get herself in her own right, especially with her hands to the wrestling. She's very, very good at striking and wrestling, not striking then wrestling. And we saw
Right.
that
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Saturday. Mhm.
Well, here's the thing, man, is like you said, she got flat right away. And the internet went in on Pat Barry. The internet, and I ain't gonna lie, I've accused him before. And it's not necessarily and it's kind of because he just, Pat Barry doesn't look like the nerdy coach, right? The guy who, he doesn't have the reputation. And when you see Pat Barry, you think of
Oh,
him
dude,
as like his old
speaking
fighting
of
days,
Pat
he was
Barry
kind of a
looks,
brute.
I
So
gotta
you think
cut
of
you
him
off.
as a brute.
I gotta cut you off real quick. Speaking of Pat Barry looks, someone put something funny on Twitter. They said because he was giving some look like to in the beginning of the fight to Aaron, and it's like Pat Barry looks like Private Pile from Full Metal Jacket, and he was like, it, it was it was damn funny. All right, back to MMA. Back to MMA.
Well, no, I mean that's kind of what it is, right? I almost think like because he's comes off as a brute that we don't give him the benefit of the doubt of being a decent coach. And I'm listening to his stuff and I like it. Like he's like, hey, I need you to dribble. And he's talking about trying to feint and create openings and use her footwork. And all that stuff is great. And it's all great. Here's where the problem lies. I think the problem is not with his coaching. I think his coaching is great. I think Pat's a good coach. The problem lies in Rose's ability or inability to deal with somebody who can stand up to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's so used to being so good that when a fighter stands up to her, she gets a little flat. You see her start to fall apart.
That's interesting. I don't. Does Pat coach anybody else that's notable that we could look at to see the way they perform?
No, and here's where it gets really interesting is that their relationship, he
Mhm.
probably has to baby her a bit in training.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah. You
saying?
can't
So
go home.
when
Yeah,
thing
you
when
can't take the work home
when
with you.
things get a little hard, he probably has to, all right, guys, cut it. All right,
Mhm.
guys, cut it. And she's not built, and she's never really been built for like those type of battles and wars. Like she's
But
great, but never built for those wars.
she can manage a fight though very well. I remember the second time she beat Joanna.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she did a great job of going from plan A to plan B, and instead of going to plan C, she knew right when to go back to plan A. Now, granted, she had a different coach at the time, but so she has had that discipline before. Yeah, it's just
But no one,
things are
but
different.
when fighters put that type, but think about when Aaron put the pressure on her, you
Hmm.
saw her get, like you said, it was instant. It was instant.
Air out of the balloon.
Yeah, it was instant.
Mhm.
And I think that's when she realized, that's when she loses control. Like you said, she manages fights well when she's managing them. But when she no
Mhm.
longer feels like she has control, she has a hard time. And a lot of fighters are this way. Like they're great. And I'm not saying that they're soft. It's just when they lose control, when they no longer have control of the situation. I'm not dictating when we're going. I'm punching you in the face. You're not feeling the effects of it. I feel like I've lost control. So now I start to panic a bit and go downhill. And that's not really Pat's fault, right? That's not bad coaching. That's kind of a personality trait that
That's
she
a
may have.
makeup. Yeah, that's their makeup.
Yeah, that's her makeup. Like she's just
Mhm.
not. Most people aren't, right? Like as human beings,
Yeah.
like when things get a little tough, we want to go. We want to be out. And I
Mhm.
think that's essentially what it is. Like she just her threshold for being able to be in longer fights or tough fights is probably not as deep as some people's.
I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. She Well, I mean, then you know what? Going forward, then she really needs to win that third round if she's going to keep this a career. And that's you. You got it. You got to get flat after the third round. I mean, and that's what's funny. If this is a 3-round fight instead of a 5-round fight, and she wins, and we're not even talking about this now. But if she's going to be in that title contention, then clearly she needs to manufacture those rounds. Like in baseball, they say you need to manufacture runs. You need to manufacture the 3 out of the 5 rounds.
Or I mean, even if it's 3 rounds, if somebody puts the pressure on her in the
Put her on
second,
her. Yeah. Hmm.
like you gotta. The thing is, like you said, she just has to be able to expand her comfort zone a little bit to where her threshold of dealing with pressure is just a little bit higher.
For sure.
I think that's really what it's not. It wasn't bad advice. I don't know what they're talking about. It wasn't, maybe I missed something on the broadcast, but it wasn't bad advice. It was none of that. To me, it's just when things get a little hot, she can't deal with it. Like when I think when things get hot and she starts to feel like she's not in control of it, she shuts down.
What's the adjustment? Rose Namajunas is your fighter. What's the adjustment you're having her make?
In
Her and Aaron
training,
Blanchfield are are having a rematch in February. What's the adjustment she's making to win those situations?
here also too lies the problem is that you have to have those tough conversations with your fighter.
Yep,
And you got to tell them that you have to tell them the truth. Hey, listen, um, you have to do some hard sparring sessions to where you lose. And I don't want to say like you lose, but where it's not going to be that easy to manage, and you have to be able to maintain your focus and your confidence and your positivity that you can come back and win. I think that's a training issue to where you're doing rounds of against like really good people, like maybe some guys that are really good that it's not that easy to get off on, and they're stopping everything that she does, and she has to be able to manage her emotions and maintain her focus to where she can still feel like she wins. And she has to be able to do that with them and then carry that into a fight, because it's one thing when you do it in the gym and then you go, well, but it's just practice. Let's do it in a fight. Like you have to be
right.
able to carry it over into a real fight. So, but I think that's really what it comes down to. But you have to have that uncomfortable conversation and let them know, hey, listen, you are falling apart when things get a little hectic.
I would really break it down. I probably would be a little softer just because that's my nature. But yeah, I'm not saying that's right. But I would be like, listen, you clearly you lost the fight. Um, you're not winning rounds. We got to figure out how to win situations. Like I was saying to Victor before, finishing exchanges. That is so big in today's mixed martial arts, is finishing striking exchanges. Um, like throw that front kick, something. We got to figure out what works, because the front kick was there at the end of those exchanges. Because there was times where Aaron would strike, and if she wasn't going in for the body lock, that she was just kind of taking that step back out of zone, but in leg striking distance. And I just yeah, got to figure out how to win situations, and then put her in those quote unquote handicap situations in training where you're forcing her to lose rounds and then come back off the stool and win the next 2 rounds in training with those hard
Well,
sparring sessions.
well, that's what we talk about situations. Like I only train fighters for situations, and the more specific they are, the better. In fact, I was working with Aljamain Sterling and O'Day Osborne today, and that was what I led with. I led with you guys. So always focus on your entire fight game as if it's one thing. It's not. It's really just a series of situation after situation after situation. And the more you can identify the conditions of those situations, the easier it's going to be for you to win them. So now let's start to break these situations down and identify the conditions of the situation and how to handle them better. Because I kind of got like, I was upset. O'Day is my man, right? O'Day, O'Day Osborne.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
fought
we
Lazy
talked about
Boy.
it.
Yeah, man, he fought Lazy Boy at the Sphere. And
Mhm.
after the fight, I was like, man, O'Day sucks. Like, I ain't tell
Yeah.
him that though.
He was on here.
But
Yeah, we talked on here about him.
yeah, but I was like, yo, he looked terrible. And so then we're working today, and I'm just like, yeah, man, you got to work on this, man. You at a high of a level to not be doing this stuff right, to be taking these bad shots, to be throwing these terrible punches. Like you two at a high level to be this bad, to deal with situations this bad. Like you can win fights against scrubs because you have a couple skills, but man, you have to be able to handle these situations and manage yourself better in fights because this is terrible. Now, Aljamain, on the other hand, is really fucking good
Yeah.
at managing situations and recognizing the conditions of a situation. I mean, he's really fucking good at that, man. Yeah.
We so I know we've done this in training, you and I, whether you were coaching me or we were coaching others. And believe it or not, I've actually taken this to my job that I work at now. I manage a sales team and we do mock sales calls. I put them in situations and they grow so much from it. Just because, like, all right, in MMA, anyone, well, at this level, you better know how to box, you better know how to wrestle, you better know what we're doing, you better know how to pick up the phone. But how are you going to react if they tell you this? How are you going to react if they don't want to tell you that? How are they going to react in fighting if they defend this, defend that? You gotta put yourself in that uncomfortable shit that you're not expecting, and force yourself to be there to get out of it. And that's like everything with life, like you gotta embrace the suck once in a while, right? Figure out how to get out of it.
Well, that's life, man. That is life. Life lessons 101. Stay in the moment. Know how to deal with each moment. Let's get up out of here, man. I know my internet connection is starting to get a little weak, but I try to make it work every week. So, Ryan, I appreciate you as always. Victor Henry, thank you for coming on the show. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe. And on that note, this court is adjourned.